All right, good morning, everyone. TGT Me is an entertainment industry interview podcast show where we interview creative people from the entertainment industry, and I'm your host, Kurt. Episode 302 here today. We are joined by a past guest on the show. He was very exuberant, very energetic, and I know it'll be a fun interview as well. The ever popular, ever amazingly talented artist, Aidan Casserly from Scapula. How are you doing today, Aidan?
Doing fine, Kurt. How are you today?
Surviving another day.
Surviving? Oh, I haven't been working hard enough to kill you.
If the show hasn't killed me, I don't think this interview will.
Tough guy.
You gotta survive in this industry. But let's talk about you, Aidan, because you took a bit of a break, and you came back to the comic here. Why did you want to give yourself a break after a fairly successful run of Scapula previously?
I think what it was is I was getting to the point where I wanted to try a new format, where the format that I had been using, it had been tried and true. It wasn't really giving me what I wanted anymore. The once a week update was fine. A lot of people do that, and I think, I don't want to be arrogant or anything, but I think I was giving people a lot for their weekly update. It got to the point where I was just the stories that I wanted to tell started growing beyond the scope of what the once-a-week format could do. And a lot of them, the last storyline of the year particularly, it was called The Gemini Killer. That was an action one, and I felt like the pacing, the timing was really hurt because of having to wait for week-long intervals. And that's just what happens. I think the once-a-week format only supports a certain kind of story, and then there gets to a point where when you want to tell bigger stories, when you really want to include a lot of the things that you want to include in your stories, character development, action, things like that, then it just became time, to really expand the format more, really start telling. And, the best way to do that is either just increase your output, pick a couple of extra days a week and start telling it there. So it is a bit more of a workload, but you know what? I think it's the best thing for the comic. So.
I agree. You've always had a great style, and I've really been surprised doing a full-page comic that you do. You've really, you've put a lot of detail into it. You've always had a great character interaction. You've had a great off-the-wall sense of humor, which I've always loved. I have a crazy Canadian sense of humor, so it works out well. But when it comes to Scapula, though, you're putting a lot of. I'm thinking you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself.
It's not. Well, it depends on if you think of it as pressure or not. Really, because I'm a working artist, because I'm a freelancer, this is just what I have to do anyway. And a lot of times clients have quick deadlines. A lot of times clients have a lot of work for you, and a lot of times it's not always fun. But whatever pays the rent, whatever puts food in the fridge, and your toys on the shelf, we all have them. It's just something I'm sort of used to by now. Storyboards take I don't know if you've ever had any storyboard artists on your show, but that eats a lot of time, and that's a lot of drawings. So
I might have had one or two on the show in the past. I think one person did a storyboard for the cult hit film Ninja Assassin, and he also was working with the Bloodwork guys as well too. So he had some interesting stories where in the first 5 minutes of that movie, I'm not sure if you've ever seen that or not. It's a rather bloody scene. Body parts and blood everywhere, and it's not even CG stuff. But first 5 minutes, they blew through their entire blood budget.
Oh my God! Yeah, you can never have enough blood. That's something horror movie makers have to learn. I mean, I forgot, what was it? Was it the Piranha 3D movie that had the record for the most fake blood that was ever? Something like that. I was like,
crazy Guinness Book World Records for movies, go figure. But when it comes,
if you're gonna go bloody, go for the record. My God, man.
Yeah, exactly. I'm surprised Saw hasn't even been in that area yet.
No, I didn't see Saw.
I think that's
in a pun. I didn't see Saw.
You've been flipping back and forth with that idea, but see. But with Scapula, though, you've always had the ability to showcase a certain character and really run with that storyline. And obviously that hasn't changed in the many years. But have you done any other work besides Scapula that you can say, here's something I've done. Here's something completely different from what you're used to seeing of me. Would someone be surprised at that?
I think most of that is the work that you see on my website. Because Scapula eats up a lot of time, it doesn't always allow me room to, do another webcomic, do another story. And I do have other ideas on the side that, hopefully I'll get around to someday, or I'll just take on the extra workload and do another one and kill myself. But otherwise, I think most of the stuff that you can see that's not Scapula related is actually my professional work that's in my portfolio. That's over at AidanCasserly.com. That's not a plug, that's just stating it. And actually, for all the griping I do about freelance, for all the stuff I say, no, I don't want to work on the client. That client's not fun. If it actually does force you to go and try something that's out of your comfort zone, out of your field of expertise, and go try something new. Because I've worked on all sorts of really, really random stuff. A lot of little nice projects that you wouldn't expect to see if you just know me from Scapula, and the client stuff that I do have the rights to use in my portfolio, and that's actually most of it. That's what my contract states, because I like to have this stuff to show off. Mm-hmm. If you just go to my website and just look through the certain areas of it, the concept art area that's mostly for games or social games, you'll see a lot of, nice, happy, cute stuff that's modeled after whatever it is that the art director or the client wants me to model it after. And, it's some of it is more of the same, and some of it is actually... Well, actually, I should say it's more of the same if you're familiar with gamings, but if you're the artist, maybe it's not more of the same, because I wouldn't really draw that stuff in my free time just for me. You see Scapula, that's what I do in my free time. But it's good to try other things, even if it's not always the things that that's your dream project. So,
well, business-wise, though, obviously being a freelancer, you have to have or you should have rather a sense of how you want to promote yourself, how you want to choose what contracts you have. Can you talk a little bit about how you've survived the business world as being a freelancer?
It's really rough. When you're on your own and you don't always have the help that you feel like you need, it's just really, you have to take on a lot of those skills for yourself. You have to be your own agent. You have to be your own contract writer. You have to find your own clients. And one of the very best things I can recommend is just really, if you want to avoid bad client situations, don't pick bad clients. One of the very first things, my clients usually find me online, and what they'll do is they'll email me, and I usually just try to get information out of them first. First of all, I want to know what kind of project they want. And secondly, I want to know what kind of a client they are too, because, you can spot warning signs very early on. If someone is writing back to you with terrible grammar, tons of typos, and that doesn't equal that you're a bad person. But sometimes you can tell by the way somebody writes to you, that the way somebody speaks to you, about whether or not they're really looking for a professional, commissioning you, and they feel that your time is worth it and their money is worth it. Then you're onto something good. If you pick up onto somebody who looks like they're, what's a nice way of putting it? Can I say douchebags?
Yeah.
If they seem like they're douchebags, then you don't deal with them, and that's a skill that takes a while to learn, because in my first couple of years of freelancing, I got burned a lot, because you're really hungry for work, you're really hungry for experience, for stuff in your portfolio, and you start taking anything, and that's when you start having some hard times. And, freelancing really is the school of hard knocks. It's not always fun. Sometimes it is. You'd be surprised, actually, by, like I was saying earlier, the kind of clients you get that aren't always the ones that are in your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. If they're good people, if they're good professionals, and you're being just as good of a professional too, you'd be surprised what you end up getting. A lot of that stuff is stuff I never would have done on my own, but I ended up doing it and had a good time, got my money, and I got a good portfolio piece out of it. So, it's just, I think the best thing I could say is just, act like a professional yourself and seek out professional, clients to work with. That aren't douchebags.
Yeah, that aren't douchebags, obviously. One thing I'm finding interesting, especially going back to university and visual arts and media and film and all that stuff, is I'm hearing a lot of my professors and teachers and everyone say, really pushing the portfolio aspect and right from year one, not even wait until you're 4 years in and then get your portfolio together. And any advice in terms of getting a beginner portfolio?
You might be aiming too far down the road. I think basically the very first thing you need to do is get the foundations of, if you're doing a portfolio for like drawing or visual arts, then the very first thing you need to do is really get comfortable with drawing and visual arts. You go learn your perspective, your figure drawing, your light and shadow, all those sorts of things. And then once you start learning those, you got to start getting comfortable with them. And then you do that either by doing the projects they give you, doing the projects that you give yourself. That's actually a really good way to start learning a lot of these basics and start applying them to the things that you want to do. If you have a comic out there, then start practicing your perspective in your comic. Challenge yourself to do a story that involves your characters jumping off Notre Dame Cathedral or something like that, because then you got to draw Notre Dame Cathedral. Yeah. If you draw them, if you're doing an action comic with superheroes, that's a good way to really test and see whether or not you're learning your figure drawing. And if you're not, you go to your figure drawing classes, you hit the books. There's a lot of different ways to learn this material. Some people do it from school, some people do it from, just studying the material on their own in the books, and either one of them is fine, But that's the very first thing to do. I think the portfolio comes from once you're really confident with your work, and once you really feel like you're making good work, that this is worth selling. And that's the problem I had back in school was this. I don't have the greatest of school stories to give you, but we were really pushed to really make that portfolio look good, really wow people. And that's not bad advice in and of itself, but at the same time, you really need to feel confident as an artist, and the best way you're going to feel confident is to really know what you're doing. Just go learn those basics, because you're never too good to go back to the basics. You're never beyond just cracking out how to draw comics the Marvel way, and just seeing what you remember and seeing what you need to learn, or not what you need to learn, just what is great, what is good to learn. A lot of this stuff is great once you start getting the hang of it. I have a lot of learning left to do, and actually I'm looking forward to it.
He says with crossed fingers.
I did not. Oh crap! I'm on video, aren't I? God damn it! I totally forgot about that.
Hey, you're on the big screen, not me. I'm just in the corner, so it's all good.
You're down in the corner with Mike and Servo and Crow, and you're just making the wisecracks about me. There we go.
Exactly, yeah. It's the Mystery Science Theater 3000 right there.
Yes. The two things, actually, that brings me into another thing. My idiosyncrasy is when I'm working on my own for freelancing, the two things that I absolutely need are coffee and Mystery Science Theater playing. That's just me, the way I work. Not always. If I have to really concentrate on something, I have to turn off all the distractions. But most of the time, that's the nice thing about being a freelancer, is that you get to set up your own routine and you have your own way of working. I'm sure some people have all sorts of crazy stuff. Maybe they keep all the materials on the floor. Maybe they wear lingerie when they're drawing. I don't know. Maybe not my thing. I don't know. But yeah, there are definitely perks to working on your own. So something to consider.
What about convention-wise this year or anything like that? How's that been working for you?
Conventions have been really tough this year because they fill up so fast, and a lot of them don't really have the greatest way to register for them. Some of them only open up their registration some of them, it seems like within a couple of weeks of the damn con opening, and then they're filled up. I mean, I've never tried for San Diego, but I'm sure that one fills up faster than a microsecond. But this was a hard year for me. The two biggest cons that I usually start with for the year were completely full by the time I even realized that I got to go and register for that. So my advice for that is just stay on the ball, check it as often as possible. If this is a convention you really want to do, then just make a lot of mental notes to yourself. Go check the site, even if it's just the same blank page every single time. Sorry, check back again later, because trust me, you're going to feel kind of like an idiot if you miss it, because I'm hard on myself all the time, but yeah, I do feel kind of bummed out about missing those. But I do got a few good ones that are definitely locked in for the year, or are going to be, assuming I don't do what I just did and forget.
Any ones in particular?
Let's see. The next one that's coming up is Big Wow in San Jose. I've never actually done this one before, so we'll see whether or not it's good. But a lot of artists that I know, a lot of good artists from the Comic Art Professional Society are going to be in it, so that's actually kind of a boost, knowing that you're there with your colleagues or people you see a few times at the meetings and all that. But yeah, it's once you start doing the conventions, you start realizing that there's a good community there for you. Maybe it's just the same. Somebody called them nomads. It's almost like people just packing up from gypsy camps. I don't know if saying gypsy camps is racist or not, but anyway, but you start seeing the same artists again and again, and you really start, recognizing them, even if you never learn their names or whatever, or if you never buy anything from them. Who cares? It's just you're all more or less in the same boat, and the people that aren't like ultra selfish competitive douchebags will reach out to you, and they'll start, you just really start forming friendships. And that's how I met Bridget Spicer from Squid Road Comics, and this time I'm going to say it without burping. But yeah, I've met quite a few other people that way, and it's just you really form some good relationships. So yeah, the convention circuit is very highly recommended. I would totally start, for those of you out there who have never done it before, really start doing it now, because it's a lot of fun, and you make money too. So that's a really good feeling for any artist, to know they're making a profit from what they do.
I'm not sure if I asked you this the last time, but what was your very first convention experience?
My very first convention, like actually exhibiting, was the Alternative Press Expo, and I think that was around... the first time I did that was probably maybe a couple years after I had first created Scapula. Scapula was first done in a zine and just distributed at the expo, because I couldn't get a table that year, so I just sort of, gave it around to some of my favorite artists, and, if they saved a copy of that, it might be worth a whole Subway sandwich by now, because, the zine was never reprinted, although... Actually, that's a good segue. Maybe the zine is reprinted. Ooh. We'll get to this at the end of the interview. That'll be my Hawking time. But that's another good thing you learn at the conventions, is you start not feeling bad about selling yourself. And I think a lot of some of the artists I know, especially the ones who are starting up, they feel kind of bad about. I don't want to turn this into a product. I don't want to sell out. Well, you gotta. There's a bit of that anyway, and I mean. There's been a lot of sites that are going on about the debate about whether or not your webcomic is your art or your business, and frankly, I like to treat it as both, seriously, because, if it's your art, you're really going to take care of it, but if it's your business, you're really going to be, professional about it. You're going to make sure you update on time, you're going to make sure you're reaching out to your readers. It's all the foundations of marketing, it's, creation, distribution, promotion, pricing, and other pretentious stuff I could be saying to make it sound like I'm Stan Lee. Excelsior, true believers! Enough said. The merry Marvel way is to sell your comic. That didn't sound at all like him, so... Oh, look, I'll do my impression of Steve Ditko. I love Steve Ditko instantly, so... God bless you if you're out there listening to this, Mr. Ditko. Okay, but were we talking about selling the book, or were we talking about conventions? Where were we?
We were doing conventions, actually.
Okay, conventions. Yeah. What else about conventions would you like to know, my friend?
Well, that's the thing is, I hear people talk about the pitch. I hear people, are sometimes pushy to the point of grabbing someone from the aisleway and bringing them in.
No, don't ever do that. No. As much as I'm here doing the Alice Cooper routine with my hat and speaking really loud and crazy, conventions are not the time to be a carny barker, because if you put yourself in the shoes of going to a convention as an attendee, not an exhibitor. A lot of times, if there's stuff at a table you don't really want to look at, you just sort of avoid eye contact and walk along. And the last thing you want to do is to have that person at the table with the most god-awful comic ever reaching out to you and saying, look at this, buy it, because then you're really going to hate them. So that's one of the rules is, just if someone approaches you, then you talk to them. That's just something I learned back when I was doing caricatures at theme parks was, you don't need to be a hardcore pitchman. You don't need to be screaming with a loudspeaker across the aisles for people to come over to you. Maybe some people can make it work, but I've never had any luck doing that. Honestly, it's just really give the customers what they want and you're going to sell it to them. That's the thing. You don't need to trick your customers. You don't need to force your customers. Just let them come by, and then you can give them your routine. Some people memorize like a little pitch about their comic. This comic is about two dogs who fell out of the sky and died, or I don't know. Was I describing an actual webcomic? I could have been. Two dogs who fall out of the sky and die. Maybe I should use that. Anyway, Yeah, some people do that. I tend to be a bit more lax about it. I don't have like a recited speech. A lot of times it's just greeting the customer. If they don't seem like they're responding to you automatically, you just say, let me know if I can help you out with anything, and just let them look around. And if they're interested in something, they'll talk to you. Otherwise, if it looks like they are just like making eye contact with you and they want to talk to you, then go for it. Just say, this is my comic, these are my prints, this is what I'm selling, I can draw you, I can draw anything you want, I can draw anything you want in the filthiest pose imaginable. I don't do that, but some people do and make good money for it. So, yeah, honestly, think about all the times when you were attending conventions and what you wanted to see and what made you happy, because a lot of attendees, when they go to these conventions, they feel really good supporting artists they like, even if it's artists they had never heard of prior to coming to the convention. And if you can get that sort of pseudo friendship, I don't say, because you're only seeing these people for a few minutes at a time, but it's a good feeling knowing that you've sort of formed some sort of bond in your head about some artist you met and that you really like their work. And I don't mean that in a creepy way, don't go misery on somebody, although that's amusing. But yeah, I think the best way to have a good time at the conventions is just think about what you would want to see if you were walking around and how you would want the exhibitors to treat you. Then after that, it's getting out of your shy zone. For those of you out there who are shy, just really start talking to these people. Once you start talking to them, even if you're having a hard time, making that sale, don't always even go into it that in mind. Really just talk to these people, see what they want out of you, and what they want out of you is what you're selling. You're going to make that sale. So,
don't put more pressure on yourself.
Oh yeah. Oh, do not put pressure. Well, that's the thing about conventions is some people can go to conventions and earn a crap ton of money. It is possible. But at the same time, if you're just starting off, I don't want to say everybody who just starts off never makes any money, because then the next convention I go to, there's going to be some 12-year-old kid who just walks up with a zine he made and he's going to sell like 10 trillion copies. But I'm just gonna say, conventions should not be about pressure. Conventions should not be about really kicking yourself in the head because you didn't sell every single copy of your book. And I think a lot of that comes from just the confidence. And you get that confidence just by being comfortable with selling and being comfortable with knowing that you have a good product that's worth selling. So, then you got to ask yourself, is this the best product I'm making? If you don't want to think of it as product, is this the best artwork that I'm making? Because that's true too. If you really ask yourself, is this, and whether or not you judge if your art is of value, you can either ask someone you trust, you can ask a professional, or you can just really ask yourself, is this the best I'm doing? So that goes back to sort of what we were talking about why did I choose to increase Scapula's work schedule? It was mostly just because I felt that, Scapula would be stronger if I gave it more time to tell a better story. So whether or not that equates into more sales, it's going to be a while before that, because the material I'm making now probably won't be in book form for at least another year or so. But, we'll see whether or not that pays off. Otherwise, in the meantime, I'm telling the stories I want. So,
and that's a good thing. Yeah. What about being that you're in California and you've gone to all of these really great conventions, which I'm envious of, because I'd love to just... I would have a field day just going up and down the California coast and the con schedule.
Come on out here. You can crash in my garage.
Crash into your garage?
You could do that too. That'd be funny. You'd have to pay for it though, but let me videotape it. That'd be the best YouTube video ever. And then 2 dogs fall out of the sky and die. There we go.
Yeah, right on top of the back garage.
Sorry, go ahead.
Celebrity-wise, though, California is a great hotspot for celebrities, especially at comic conventions. Though, have you have you met any of? Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is, get over celebrity worship. That's the thing, is because I think that's when you start getting into stuttering fanboy mode and you're so nervous. And then when you realize that these are actually nice people you're talking to. I mean, I'll give you a story. When I went to Ape one time, that was the first time I met Tony Millionaire. Tony Millionaire is a very, very talented, insanely talented, or just insane cartoonist, and I was so nervous about going to talk to him. Number one, because he was someone I kind of idolized in comics, and number two, because the guy's goddamn 7 feet tall, so... And, I went up to him, and I was really freaking nervous, because, it's like, how do you talk to one of your heroes? And he was just totally cool about it. He just said, oh, thank you very much for the compliment, and I gave him a flyer, and he actually said, oh, will you sign this for me? And I was like, oh, great, that was really nice. And I don't know whether or not he ever checked out Scapula. Tony, if you're watching, let me know, or just come, don't throw a beer ball at me. I know that's what you do. But, it's just when you start realizing that a lot of your artistic heroes are actually just professionals who are just doing their job or just doing what they love. It takes the mystery out of it, and also lets you realize, number one, you don't need to hero worship anybody, because I have met a couple of famous cartoonists who shall remain nameless who turn out to be complete effing a-holes. I cut my language on that. You see what I did there? They turn out to be complete a-holes, and then you never look at their stuff again. I mean, I met a creator of a very cartoon I loved as a kid, and when he turned out to be an asshole, then I just, I never watched his cartoons again. So, but then when the people who aren't like that, it's just, I think you have an easier time approaching them, you have a better time understanding them, and then when you understand what they're going through as artistic professionals, then it's easier to start applying that to yourself. It's not so much of, I'm the amateur, they're a god up on a mountain. It's just realizing, okay, this is what they do. I can take some lessons from that. I can either start applying that now, or when I work my way to that closer level, maybe that's how I can start, handling the situation. But, it's just, don't celebrity worship, because a lot of celebrities suck. That's my bottom line. And if I ever become rich and famous, or infamous, then we'll see whether or not I apply that to myself. You can come and tell me I sold out, and then I'll probably be in a cell somewhere.
Or you'll just start saying, yeah, well, you'll wave yourself with a wad of money or whatever, and just go yeah.
Yeah. I need a monocle.
Yeah, I know. I was just gonna say.
The monocle in the hand. There we go. Great quivering iceberg, Batman. Sorry, this thing gives off really potent fumes.
I was gonna say.
I think that's one of the reasons I'm very energetic at conventions is actually when I'm doing caricatures, I use these nice things. These are Canadian markers called Marquettes. They don't make them anymore, or they don't make them very good for caricaturing. But every now and then, if I need to fill out a big black area, you whip out the gigantic Sharpie, and you got to be careful with these. They give off potent fumes. I don't know if they're toxic. Go read the fine print that's on the damn marker. But I do get a little energetic at conventions. No, that's not seriously, it's not because of the marker. It's simply because, you're having fun doing what you're doing. And I think a lot of my caricature stories are really the best. My favorite memories of doing conventions is drawing people, giving them something that's special just to them. And I think they remember it too, because I've had quite a few people at conventions, just customers who emailed me afterwards, and they either bought other prints or commissioned me to come draw at their private parties or things like that. So, yeah, you are forming relationships, even if it's people you may not ever see again, or maybe people who you don't bother to remember their names, because I'm terrible with names. But, just once you start getting into the groove of this, and when you start realizing that people out there, whether or not they're attendees or other artists, are a lot nicer than you think they are, then you're going to get that confidence, and you're going to do just fine.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I hope. That's not a guarantee, because you may fall off a cliff and die with 2 dogs out of it.
Falling cliff. Sounds like a 1,000 Ways to Die episode. How did you die? Well, Fido and Fritz.
Let's ask him. There we go. How did you die? I slept with Aidan.
Oh, God.
Wop, wop, wop.
Oh. All right. Is there, well, we wanted to talk about the book as
Sure.
spoiler alert segment because, it's a collection of your work here.
So what's going on is, even though I've moved on to the new material, doing it 4 days a week, we do have the first good book collection ready, because in previous book collections I've done before were of varying levels of quality because I was using print-on-demand services that weren't all that great. I'm sorry, I'll hold it a little closer and I'll turn the spotlight on it. Da-da-da-da! So getting back to one of the things of, just communicating with your fans is, I would not have considered doing the complete series had I not just actually asked the fans. Because what I was doing before was just doing selected stories in a book format. That was the very first Scapula book, was doing just that thing, is just cherry picking my favorite stories. And when I thought about doing that again, I just thought, well, why don't I actually put out a blog or whatever and ask the readers, what do you want to see? And it turns out a lot of them just wanted to see the complete series. They didn't want cherry pick stories. They wanted the whole thing. So, and I had never thought something like that would sell, but it turns out, if you listen to your readers, they will tell you what you want, and then you can give it to them. So after a lot of looking around for a good publisher, I finally found one, and I'll be doing a blog write-up on them later as soon as all these arrive. But this is the proof copy. The whole order is due to arrive in about a day or two, so then I'll put out a blog, and, I want to inspect the merchandise too. I want to make sure you're all getting what you order. And then this is going to be available. So this is the complete series, Volume 1. It's called Losers Never Quit, based on that old adage that I never quite understood. And this collects, actually, not just the webcomic. This has a lot of stories in there. It has the first zine that I told you about. That's a 26-page comic, and that's the very first Scapula adventure. It's where he puts together his villain gang, he takes on the Mafia, and he gets married. He gets married to someone from the Mafia, and you'll have to figure out more about that when you actually see it. This also has some storylines that I did when I was first approaching a lot of comic publishers, seeing if they were interested in Scapula. I drew up a lot of original stories, so you're going to see about 3 or 4 of those in here too, so you're getting a lot of extra material that was never put on the Scapula site. Aside from that, you get the first 2 years of the webcomic, and these are all uncensored, because back in those early days I was wondering whether or not I should be showing this and that. And, eventually I didn't until now, so that's all in here. This also has my TGT What's Cooking story in there. For those of you who did not buy the TGT webcomics What's Cooking book, shame on you. You're going straight to hell with 2 dogs falling on you. But that's in here too. That's How to Make Coffee. And then finally we have a book-exclusive story that was in the first Scapula book, so if you didn't get it then, you're going to get it now and in full vibrant color. So there we go. You'll hear more about the details are going to be posted later, but otherwise, if I could just get the light to shine on it, there we go. Yeah. There we go. So Scapula Volume 1, Losers Never Quit. Please check in with me this week, because all the ordering details are going to be there. So, sweet. Hope you enjoy.
Awesome. Is there anything else that I haven't touched upon that you want to let your readers and watchers and...
Oh, well. Anything else I haven't touched upon? Well, for those of you who just who didn't catch on to the earlier part of the conversation, Scapula is updating 4 days a week now. We still have the full color Sunday page as always before, and then Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays we have the 3 to 4 panel black and white comics that continue the same storyline. They all follow the same continuity, and these are going to be some, I believe, much stronger stories than we've ever had before. But, just jump in now, catch up on the archives for what we just passed. It's only been about a little over a month since we started up again, so you'll catch up in no time. And, yeah, I hope to see you all there.
Awesome stuff, Aidan. And as always, you bring a wealth of knowledge to the show, and I really appreciate it.
I hope I'm not being too much of a know-it-all. I can do something stupid if you all like.
No, not at all. There
we go. You ever see Unshi and Nandaloo? There we go. This is how I put on my makeup. With this thing. Yes.
You can't miss with that.
Oh my god. This is going straight up my nose. No, but seriously, yeah, if I can impart anything on there to everyone out there, take yourself, just treat yourself as the artist that you think you deserve to be treated as. You'll start doing better work. You'll start feeling more confident about going out into the world and finding those customers, finding those clients, and then, it's just, it builds upon itself. So, just start with being, the best artist you can be.
Awesome. Well, we're going to leave it at that here. As always, you can see Aidan Casserly's work, of course, at aidancasserly.com. You can see it at Scapula... Is it
Scapula? Scapulacomic.com. No spaces, no hyphens.
Wonderful. And, of course, thank you again, Aidan, for coming on the show. And I'd love to have you back on next time.
Sure. Anytime, Kurt. Anytime.
Awesome stuff. And that ends this episode of TGT with Dirk Manning-esque.
Hey. I didn't do the... Okay, there we go. Woo! I'm Dirk Manning. I'm going to drink your blood.
Anyhow, we have a couple of. Well, this is Comic Month coming up now, so I mean, actually, this is Comic Month because we're in April. We have Michael Cuddy from Enemy Transmission coming up next week. Of course, we have another Geeky Jobs episode as well tomorrow, and I'm going to take a few weeks off because I have exams and stuff. But then we're going to go right back into Filmmaker Month, actually, which is in May. So we're going to have a lot of filmmakers. One from Australia that's doing a huge gathering of web creators as well as producers, all that other stuff, and a few other local Toronto filmmakers as well, documentary filmmakers. And then I'll be preparing for my first documentary in August at Fan Expo Canada as a fan, well, as a small press person, trying to get that big interview. So we'll leave it at that.
All right.